Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk, and myself, JM. Spiritual Fitness is a program dedicated to exploring the timeless texts and practices of Bhakti Yoga for people who want wisdom in their everyday life. We are close to 23 member on Zoom and close to 50 member on Facebook. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to Spiritual Fitness.
Thank you very much, JM. I'm so happy to be back and great to see all of you. I'm seeing your name, just seeing your names on there, and those of you who I can see personally, it makes me so happy to be back here. We're talking today about the gardens of our lives. Every person is a gardener, and we have an opportunity to plant and sow what we wish. And we'll be going into some of the details of that today. And the goal is really to leave an intention in all of our hearts about how we can be deliberate and then think about what result we want out of the garden of our hearts and minds and how to organize it better. Does that sound like an okay goal? All right. Thanks, Josh. Thank you, JM. And thanks, Shweka, for handling all the technical parts today. Good to see you all again. So let's just start with a little bit of introspection, because it's so valuable to take a moment of stillness to look inside and feel what kind of intentions we have floating around, what kind of desires and so forth. So if you'll just sit up a little straighter than you were a second before, like you're a rocket getting ready to shoot to a different stratum. And then close your eyes so that you can look inside and bring your awareness to your breath. Your breath regulates all the different functions of the body and the mind. Pranayama is such a beneficial exercise rather than random breath. And just by noticing your breath and taking natural breaths, making sure that you're fully exhaling without straining, and then taking a good nourishing inhale, stopping even for a minute or two every day, and being aware of your breath and how it is sustaining you and how it affects your mind can be unlimitedly beneficial. So let's just do that. If your mind wanders away, then bring it back in gratitude to your breath, thinking, thank you for sustaining my life. And don't worry about anything else. Today, in this airtight compartment of the hour that we have together, we're going to be cultivating intention, integrity, our bhakti gardens that we get to plant seeds in. So as you're breathing, become aware that you are aware. Notice your awareness. What is it? You are not a product of material combination. You're categorically different from the lower energies that you see around you, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, meaning space, even mind is a lot grosser energy than you are, even intelligence. It's a software, but you are conscious energy, which is far superior to matter. So be aware of yourself being aware. And what does it feel like just to be aware of your awareness without being aware of your life situation, whatever kind of anxieties are there due to polarities, obligations. These are all your life situation, but you are your awareness. And you can become aware that these are separate objects from you. So now, just let them go and play out as if they're playing in some theater somewhere that you're not going into. And you can stay situated right where you are right now, right where you always are right now, in the conscious present. And stay there. And breathe. And relax, but remain alert and aware of your awareness. And now, silently within your mind, visualize the word Rama. It's spelled R-A-M-A. You can see the word painted on the wall of your mind. R-A-M-A, pronounced Rama. And silently in your mind, say the mantra with your mind, non-verbally, 3 times. And now that you've said it in your mind, I'm going to repeat the mantra 3 times. And behind muted mics, you can use your vocal cords to externalize the mantra. Rama, Rama, Rama. And now, playing the role of the observer, take a look at your mind, your intelligence, and your body and see that they are external to you, like a field. As a human, you have the opportunity to cultivate that field as a gardener cultivates a garden. What you decide to plant, what you decide to weed out, is up to you. What's more, you can also water the garden and get on a regular schedule to make it grow. And bring your awareness back to your breath. And take another nourishing inhale. And as you exhale, rub your hands together. Bring some awareness back to your external frame. Open your eyes and come back into the Zoom room. And the metaphor of the garden is very helpful. And as I've been thinking about it, not only thinking about it, but also gardening quite a bit, I noticed that even the various elements of the garden are not independent. They're all interdependent. So when we talked about weeding last week, It's also related to planting of seeds, because after all, weeds start from seeds, and that's not separate from the soil or the water. It's an integrated process, and so are our lives. And so the teacher who brought the practical process of bhakti, the yoga of devotion and dedication and gratitude to light in the world over 500 years ago, Chaitanya, gave this metaphor for the practice of bhakti yoga and for our lives, that we're actually gardeners. And so, first of all, I'd like to point out that really it's a science. Planting, gardening is scientific. In fact, I know a couple of botanists, and they've dedicated many, many years of their lives to studying the science of botany. And when I have a specific question about my garden or a problem, I call one of them up and I say, one of them lives in Los Angeles, I say, Ishana, what's going on with my zucchini and plants, and what should I do? And she's able to tell me, okay, this is what happened. This is what you have to do. It's very scientific. It's something that you can measure. It's something that you can study, that you can catalog, and you'll know what to do. And so the science of bhakti yoga is similar. There are ways in which our lifestyle and the ways that we organize our lives will affect the garden of our life. Don't you love that metaphor? I mean, you are a garden. Your heart and mind are gardens. They're open fields. And how you cultivate them will determine what grows there and what kind of fruit you get, what kind of flowers are there. You don't have to allow in certain kinds of seeds. And I feel there's a great need for this metaphor in the world today, because oftentimes people seem to feel helpless. The world, especially in America nowadays, there's a kind of anxiety growing that what happened to our garden? I'm hearing this a lot nowadays. I mean, this isn't America. America doesn't look like this. There's so many polemics that are going on in various places, and there seems to be so much uncertainty, and some of the values that we may have treasured, that they're written in documents that say our institution of this experimental government is based on these inalienable truths, and that we're all created equal. Everyone should be seen equally in the eyes of the law, and so forth. There are a lot of emphasis on metaphysical principles, truth, compassion, freedom, the idea we should be free, and so forth. And so oftentimes nowadays I'm sensing people saying, oh, what happened to our beautiful garden? What happened to those plants? And what about the fruits? And where are they? And don't there seem to be a lot of weeds? For instance, a weed would, if you tell a lie, it's planting a certain kind of seed, isn't it? Has anybody ever here told a lie before? No. Okay. I know. I could say that in my relationship here with my wife, I'm always very, very careful, because it's easier to say, okay, well, just take a little bit off it, or say a different number or whatever. It's heavier lifting to actually say the truth and just let it stand on its own. But if I shade it, if I say something different, I know sooner or later that little seed's going to go in, and it's going to come up somewhere, and it robs my garden of some nutrient like integrity, or it produces a more complicated situation. Seeds that get planted unintentionally, or they're weed seeds that get planted and then they take over the garden, and that can happen. And this could be one theory about what's happening, for instance, in America, which is one big garden. It was an intentional blueprint. Let's plant this garden over here. We're leaving behind Europe, and they can grow their garden. We're going to have ours here. We want to be free to garden this. And here is our blueprint. These are the kind of plants that we want here. But now we may see certain kinds of, I'm not saying that at any time everything is ideal. No garden is, that requires work, but perhaps it gets overgrown at a particular point. I let it go, or some kind of weed gets in. It's like, how did that get here? Like, I had some lamb's ears, not that those are weeds, but they're very aggressive, which sounds counterintuitive to their name. Lamb's ears sounds, they're so soft and gentle. I planted a few, and then a few years later, I noticed, like, hey, you're all over the place. You took over the whole garden. So that can happen. And there may be a way in which we can feel a little bit of control in our own lives, because just because the greater garden seems to be overrun at a particular time, maybe even now, with certain kinds of weeds and unnecessary kinds of polemics that are going on, we can, and we have the wherewithal to tend to our own gardens. And also, whatever we grow in our garden, we can propagate elsewhere. That's the magic of seeds. Even if you just have one seed, you can, from that one good seed, you can start another garden somewhere else. And it can propagate. And in time, through the power of multiplication, it can repopulate and so forth. So I would put it as a responsibility. In fact, that the ancient Bhakti texts say that as a human being, we have a responsibility that other animals don't have. I woke up this morning and I was thinking about gardening metaphors. Can we just show that bird slide? I'll reveal to you what I was thinking when I woke up this morning. And that is a bird is born with only one kind of song. Of course, some birds are capable of learning a few songs. Even some of them can talk a little bit. Crows have a little bit of a language system. But generally, the birds I notice, they have one tune. And it's more or less programmed into their system. So you see this little fella out there? He's chirping away, but he has one song that he can sing. And then I was thinking about what the Bhakti texts say about humans. We're different from birds, in that although birds have tongues, they have vocal cords. We have tongues, we have vocal cords. We can more deliberately change our song. We can sing a different song. We can learn new songs, new languages. And also, we can organize our lives very differently in such a way that we can get a different kind of fruit. Now I want to show you the first quote. And this is the second thing I was thinking about. And it's something I'm hoping that all of you can take away today with you. And that is, if you want an uncommon result in your life, so you need to sow an uncommon seed. That's at the top. You see? Sow uncommon seeds if you want an uncommon result. Sow uncommon seeds. Can everyone say that one time, please? Sow uncommon seeds if you want an uncommon result. So what do we expect? If you leave it to chance, that's not gardening. That means any seed comes in from any direction. It's random. Random seeds really are we call them weeds generally. They come in, and I mean, all plants have some kind of benefit. We just don't know what they are, but when they're random, we call them weeds. But if you want something, some uncommon plant in your garden, in your mind, in your heart, in your life, you want the fruit to come out, you really do have to plant an uncommon seed. Otherwise, how is it going to come? It doesn't happen by chance. And that's one of the points of the scientific nature of Bhakti Yoga. And that is the way in which events unfold in our lives has to do with our own cultivation. Here's Henry David Thoreau. Though I do not believe that a plant will spring up where no seed has been, I have great faith in seeds. Convince me that you have a seed there, and I'm prepared to expect wonders. No seed, nothing comes up. No need to wait around or go investigate the area of the little pot you put out if you didn't put a seed in it. But if you do put it in, then there's something wonderful that can happen. The miracle of a plant will grow up. So if we very deliberately plant seeds in our conscious mind and heart, then they can grow. And so it's about choosing the right kinds of seeds and studying the science of seed planting. Here's another one from Leo Eichmann. A good gardener always plants 3 seeds, one for the bugs, one for the weather, and one for himself. And so when we're taking up a cultivation in our lives, we want to go in a different direction. We want to upgrade our lifestyle. There are obviously going to be instances where the seeds get eaten. Seeds are not fruitful. In other words, they don't germinate, or some little predator gets them when they're tiny. So we have to be persistent. First of all, believe in seeds. Seeds work. Everything grows from a seed. Either in the thought world, a seed gets planted in our mind and then it'll grow from there. In the physical world, in order to have a garden, if you want bok choy, you got to plant bok choy. It's not going to come up from a carrot seed. And if you don't plant at all, what do you expect? You'll come back, and will there be nothing in the garden plot? No, there'll be something. It's just nothing you really deliberately put in. Seeds come from every direction. They float in. In fact, I was hiking up in Maury Point recently, and I saw there's a certain kind of plant. I haven't identified it yet, but it puts out millions of little seeds, and each one of them have a tiny little tuft of what looks like cotton on top. So when the wind comes by, they get lifted up, and I saw them flying off the hill, off into far-flung places and reorganizing themselves, implanting themselves in various places far away. And seeds have mechanisms through which they can transport themselves. Some of them stick onto you. When I was a kid, there were seeds in the hills nearby, but they would stick onto our trousers, and then when we get home, we shake them off, and they go, there you go, here's your new home. They could go miles away and implant themselves somewhere else. So the seeds will come in. So we have to be very deliberate, and we also have to be persistent and taking care of them and plant more than maybe once. And the third, food for thought. Robert Louis Stevenson, don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds you plant. I always find this quotation helpful because it's easy to get impatient when planting. When's it going to come up? How long does it take to get an apple from an apple tree? Well, if you just planted the seed, it's going to take you a couple of years at least before it comes up. But if you have confidence in the seed, you got it from a person who said, this is a good tree, good seeds. We've been planting these for years. And you follow the science. Say, yes, here's what this seed needs, and I'm going to put it in the right place. You can be very, very confident that something good's going to come up. And that's all we can do as gardeners, is tend to that part of our lives where we're making sure that we plant the best possible seeds that we can get in the best possible circumstances. And that Chaitanya went into in detail about how to organize your lifestyle so that you are a better medium or a field, or that would be called the soil of your life, of your mind and your heart. What's that like? What's the quality of it? I'm going to ask for a few reflections and questions. But first, I want to tell you something that I find to be very interesting in the science of planting seeds, and that is that weed seeds tend to thrive on bad soil. Did you know that? There are different kinds of weeds that gravitate towards different kinds of bad soil, and expert gardeners can look at the kinds of weeds that are coming up and say, oh, this is what's wrong with your soil. That's how precise the science of gardening is. And Chaitanya taught in the science of Bhakti Yoga that you can attend to the soil of your life. That is, what's in your heart, what's in your mind, in what state are you keeping yourself presently? And once I received the best compliment I've ever received in my life. You want to hear what it was? It really, I was on a retreat in India where I spent time, and I was really leaning into my spiritual practice. And I came over to one of the centers there to give a class at an ashram, and some people were there, and I gave the class. And in the questions and answers in the class, somebody said, I want to thank you for keeping yourself in such a good state. And I wasn't aware that I was in such a good state. But when they said that as feedback, I thought, well, that's a nice compliment, because that's about all I can do, is try to keep myself in an upgraded state. And then somebody noticed that, yeah, I was trying to actually work on myself, and it was apparent. So what we do to keep ourselves in a ready state to take in good seeds, how we're amending the soil of our lives, is something that Chaitanya went into. As a gardener, you have to be careful. What kind of condition is your heart in? Because if it's in a poor condition, then weed seeds will love it there, and they'll grow lavishly in that bad soil. But if you put in the best of soil, it's not that no weeds will come, but they tend to not thrive. They don't have the genetic code to thrive in that good soil as much as the better seeds do. And that's a very interesting part of the science of bhakti, is how to keep your heart, mind in a much better state by organizing your life. So before I go into more detail on that, what did you hear from any of the quotations or from the meditation and what we've talked about so far that resonated with you, that you can put in the chat box? Or you can just unmute yourself and say, this is what I thought.
We have a question from Facebook from Rohan.
Okay, but don't let Facebook get ahead of us here on Zoom. It's a competition, you know.
Sure.
We got to keep up with them. Go ahead, Facebook first, and then we'll get from Radha Kripa, and then let's see who else can put on the chat. Okay, go ahead.
Facebook first?
No, he was going to tell us what was on Facebook. JM?
Yeah, go ahead, Rajesh Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I like the quote which you mentioned. I actually took a picture of that one. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds you plant, because sometimes when you don't get the results, you might become impatient. But as you keep on investing, definitely the result is going to be there. So it pretty much resonates that have a bit patience. You have a patience, as you previously mentioned, that there are few seeds which takes its own time. Don't get irritated or annoyed with somebody else reaping the benefits so soon, much earlier. So have patience, and more you see, so the harvest, so it will help.
Well, I like that, because we've talked about karma. Karma really is really describing seed sowing. And we've talked about that. I actually gave a quotation from one of the ancient texts called the Puranas that say aprarabdha palam bhaptam kutam bijam palonmukam kramenaiva priliante Vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. This is a verse describing karma, and it's a metaphor for seeds. Kuta bijam. Bijam means seed, and kuta means interim stage when the seed is starting to grow. And then there's a seed in dormancy where it's dormant, but something wakes it up and it grows. So karma has a lot to do with that. And so we, as you said just now, Rajesh, there may be others who are getting some fruit, and then we're thinking, well, why don't I get fruit? Well, don't worry about it. Just plant seeds. Attend to your part. You're the gardener. Why ask? Just cultivate and plant the seeds. Yeah. What else?
I really love this talk. It's beautiful. And I was thinking the other day about the weed of dishonesty, and that sometimes we think we just don't want to hurt someone's feelings or something, but really what you're doing by being dishonest is depriving the opportunity of making a decision for themselves, what to do in their life based on the truth.
Wow. That's powerful. Joanna, thank you for that. And thanks for bringing us back to that. And the seed that's planted when we say something that's dishonest, it takes away from our integrity. And also it starts to take root, and then it produces its own seed. And I like what you said about, say the truth and let them deal with the consequences, or let them deal with the implications of what you just said. And if you have integrity, there's another part in the Bhagavad Gita that talks about how important it is for those who are practicing the yoga and who are gardeners to tell the truth. And then Krishna says, after he says, tell the truth, he says, you should do it you should try to be pleasing in your speech also. So in other words, don't tell the truth in such a way that you'll harm people. Yes, we have to tell the truth, but tell it in a way without shading it, but tell it in such a way that it is the least harmful to somebody else. Maybe don't gloat over it if it's something that's going to hurt them or something like that, but couch it in such a way that they'll appreciate it, be able to digest it. There's an old saying that all of you know, the operation was a success, but the patient died. And so sometimes, I did it. It's like, well, how did you do it? So that's another aspect to telling the truth, doing it pleasingly or as best as possible. I really liked your point. Put the seed in and do it properly, and then let the result come. What else, JM?
We have a couple of realizations on Zoom. One is from Ram. Never realized weeds are drawn to soil type. I guess it is true in life too. Thank you for sharing this to reflect on.
Yes, so I'll just mention that a little bit about the metaphor of the soil, and that is we can really upgrade the soil of our heart, and that's the kind of metaphor I'm using. That our heart is the fertile place where these seeds go in. Where do we get them? From our association. We get seeds by our association, who we associate with. In fact, in the book I wrote, I talk about idea seeds and how they come from books. Books obviously come from people. And I describe books as a delivery device. And what are they delivering? They're delivering idea seeds. And I wrote a chapter about the ways in which books have taken root in society, or the idea seeds from books have taken root in society and have changed things. And the seeds are out there, even if the book isn't there. Still the ideologies take root, and they grow for many, many years to come because the books have gone out there. And so similarly, the kind of association that we get will affect the kinds of seeds that are going in. And so to keep ourselves, in a healthy, to keep the soil of our heart healthy, it's important to have a clear intentionality in our life, which can be done through prioritizing, keeping integrity towards our values and our priorities, so that when random seeds come, we know, okay, I don't want to plant that one. And we have a kind of protection system against it. Yes, what else, JM?
We have one more from Wolf. A bad result is a good result as well as an opportunity to adjust for the next round.
Yeah, that's true. We learn failure is the pillar to success. And when we, and I really like your point, Wolf, about learning from what is a bad result, and that you put it in quotation marks, because the way that Chaitanya described the world we live in is it's a self-correcting environment. And for those who are eager to grow, it's an environment in which we can refine ourselves.
We lost you for last 10 seconds. If you want to just
check. Let me just check my internet.
Yeah.
Maybe it went off. Hold on. I don't have a clue. Everything looks fine.
Yeah, it goes up and down, but right now look, this is good.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Well, looks like Denise has written. Why don't you read it, JM?
Sure. Dennis says, I've been thinking about the gardening analogy with something I learned recently. Poppy plants are sometimes considered weeds that grow together with grains. They are unusual in that they really like growing in tilled soil, and some farmers put a lot of effort into suppressing them. But there is some evidence that suggests that the roots of the poppy plants make the soil better for grains, and that leaving the field fallow to let the poppies grow for a year can enrich the soil for the next year's grain. I wonder if this makes sense with the gardening analogy too. I've been thinking of it as the importance of period of rest.
Oh boy. Well, look at how far you can, you can extend this metaphor unlimitedly, but yes, it goes to permaculture. There are a way in which those who really know how to work close to the earth, they grow up doing it, or they learn how to do it from others. They're very aware of the environment in the soil, amongst the different kinds of plants that are compatible and so forth. And yes, they can be complementary oftentimes, and knowing which ones are complementary, which ones aren't, and allowing the environment to take care of itself with a little bit of guidance can be really, really helpful. And there is a way in which if you just bully the soil and you say, you got to grow like this, and we'll just nuke everything that we don't like, you can end up with lots of unintended consequences, like taking out certain kinds of species of plants that, I wasn't aware that there was a type of bug that was beneficial that lived on those plants and so forth. So really, again, it goes back to a science. And the more you can become aware of what's beneficial and what's not, and how they all work together, the better garden you can grow. And that's really maturity in organizing your life in ways that are most fruitful.
We have one more from Shweka. Every action you take adds up to define who you are, especially the small ones.
Yes, I like that you said, especially the small ones, Shweka, because everything we do, say, speak, these are a kind of seed in themselves. Why don't you show that chart that shows the progression of how
Sure.
things grow from subtle to gross, and it'll sort of illustrate what Shweka just said. And of course, Chaitanya talked about how thoughts are seeds. So, a statement I pulled out of one of the wisdom literature: your body is generated from activity, and activity is generated from the body. Just as a tree is generated from a seed that is generated from a tree. And so there's obviously a great metaphor here. The way our bodies manifest one after another is called samsara. We're in a particular body now, and the kind of activity that we're doing now, as we've talked about in previous classes, leads to our next body. And it's the subtlety of the consciousness we've developed that develops the next body. Remember, I talked about how Patanjali says in the thought world, we're actually creative. So the kinds of thoughts and what he calls impressions or samskars are created by the way we organize our life, the things we're hearing, talking about, cultivating, taking into our consciousness. They make impressions, very much like if you see on the beach where there's wet sand and somebody walks over it, or many people walk over it, you get many impressions. If you were to take a mold of one of those impressions and then fill it with plaster of Paris, you would get a complete form. And in a similar way, he says, does Patanjali, that our bodies are the products of our impressions in this lifetime. They get projected in the next lifetime, and there's a filling in of those impressions by material nature, by the grosser elements, from subtle to gross. So in this model, we see words at the top. Words are seeds. And the words that we both speak and hear lead to thoughts. The thoughts then lead to actions. I feel compelled by my thoughts, and I think, oh, I'll try this, I won't do that. And the actions lead to habits. Habits are our character is the aggregate of our habits. And then that our character leads to destination. And on goes the cycle. So in a very subtle way, we're planting seeds, as Shweka was saying, when we're speaking, when we're acting, when we're hearing, when we're allowing things to go in deliberately or not. If you're allowing them to go in, and then it's deliberate to some point, but the more deliberate we are about putting good seeds in, the better the result will be. So let me talk about a couple practical things that Chaitanya talked about with the garden. Oh, thanks, Nicole. I'm glad you liked the cycle. Yes. So we're the gardeners. And so there are a couple points. And that is one, very practically, be careful who you associate with. Yes. Yeah, I'm good without the slides just for a second, because I have a couple of thoughts that are very practical that I didn't put into the slides. And one of them is association. And I mentioned that. Choose the kinds of people that you associate with very carefully, because the words they speak come out of their hearts. They take seeds from their hearts. It goes in your ear, and from the ear, it gets planted in your garden. And you'll notice that